It's your weekly dose of confessions.
Hello and welcome to our weekly wonder. It's a little something which is called the Confessions Podcast. This week's concise collection of terrible tales features a mud pack mess-up, a motor racing misdemeanour, a term time tantrum, and some skiving schoolboys. Here it all comes. Anyway, it's very nice to have Brother Matthew and Sister Rebecca back. And, in fact, someone sent me a tweet the other day saying how much they'd missed Matt saying, "It's all your own fault," with that kind of attitude. Yep. So anyway, we'll see what happens here. To Auntie Alice, who sent in tonight's confessional tale. Auntie Alice, thank you very much indeed. Dear Father Simon and the Assembled Collective, this sad and sorry tale comes from this year's August Bank Holiday weekend. And whilst I am mindful that you probably have a backlog of confessions requiring absolution, I hope that the following will demonstrate your show as being not only truly wonderful, but also bang up to date. The incident in question occurred in Cambridge, where we were staying to attend my brother and his wife's twin boys' christening. Let's call them Pam and Nath. Probably best to, as these...
Pam's a girl's name, isn't it?
These are their names. Yes?
I said it were two boys.
There's naught so queer as folk, Mother Superior.
Right, this is going to be difficult.
As they say in Cambridge. We've probably changed the names. We've just...
You just said it was their names.
Well, I'm just reading what's... But the standard policy is change the area.
This has got off to a great start, by the way. Well done, everyone.
Yeah. Pam and Nath are the parents' names.
Well, you didn't make that clear.
If you were listening carefully, like the audience, I think you've just forgotten how this works. That's the way it is. So, shall we start again? Anyway, twin boys' christening and Pam and Nath are the parents.
Okay.
Right. We had a very enjoyable, spiritual and uplifting weekend. It was wonderful to meet other members of the family and to mingle whilst drinking glasses of fizz and eating christening cake on the lawn, whilst watching others get steadily merrier on the bouncy castle. Clearly the adults were on the bouncy castle. Fine idea. A perfect weekend until at least the following day. As godmother, I take my duties seriously, so whilst Pam nipped out to get some bits and bobs, I'd used my time to tidy, dust and vacuum the house. I washed the kitchen floor, cleaned their cooker range, all was sweet. My two boys watched the twins, and I decided to have a leisurely shower. And this is where the foul deed occurred. In Pamela's very beautiful guest en suite, I found some very exotic Dead Sea mud body peel. Who doesn't root through their sister-in-law's bathroom cabinet? No, maybe everybody does. I therefore decided to go for the whole deal. Face mask, body mask and general pampering session. All was well as I mixed the green mud in the sink, totally ignoring the bit that said, in capital letters, "Do not allow mud to go into the drain." This was, after all, a very modern house with modern new drains. After a while, I sloshed away... What?
Right, so a modern house is going to have modern drains.
Apparently
Lovely.
so.
Yeah, right. That's how it works, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
After a while, I sloshed away the remains of the mud and was pleased to see it disappear without a trace. I then stepped into the bath and started to wash away the body peel under the shower. It took some time, and I was surprised to see that the mud had become more like green PVA glue. Soon I was up to my knees in water. The drain was totally blocked. Panic set in as I tried to dislodge bits of mud with combs and toothbrushes from the blocked drain. Frantically, I called for my youngest son to get a stick, a skewer, a drill, anything to unblock the bath plug. The water finally began to drain away, but there was almost 6 inches to go when the drain blocked completely. Downstairs, Pam had returned with members of the Mother and Baby Club. We had tea and more christening cake going on, but it was all being distributed while I was stuck upstairs and I was still covered in mud. Using 2 rather lovely towels, I managed to clean myself off while sending my husband to look in the garage and under the sink for drain unblocker. But no joy. Finally, I too ventured downstairs and slipped out into the garden to root around in the garage myself. I noticed that Pamela's neighbour was also visiting her newborn son. A quick scurry through the hedge, and I had investigated her house. Right. Nothing under her sink either.
What's going on here?
Don't do that.
Not a drop of caustic soda to be had.
Oh, really?
You'd have
All
thought
right.
she might have had something under her sink.
Silly woman.
Anyway, back upstairs, I then used 3 of Pam's beautiful, deep, fluffy, enormous towels, my nightdress, and a bumper pack of kitchen roll to soak up the ever-solidifying muddy water. Finally, the water had gone, and the bath looked pristine. The towels and the nightdress were smuggled into the bin, along with a paper mountain of used kitchen roll. A frantic call to my husband to buy drain unblocker was made, and we left soon after with no one being any the wiser. I therefore seek forgiveness from Pamela for using her best bath products, the stuff that said, don't run down the sink, for blocking her drains and for wantonly destroying her beautiful fluffy towels. I beg forgiveness from the mother and baby club members who no doubt thought I was insane as I rootled around in the garage, barefoot and dripping wet, and ignored their friendly inquiries. I beg forgiveness for not knowing which recycling bin to put the mud in, so causing yet more landfill. A minor issue. Incidentally, I did have the courage to phone my brother at work when we were 2 hours down the road, as I was terrified that Pam would bath the twins and somehow burn them with the drain unblocker. He was very understanding and said the drain always blocks, so not to worry. I decided not to tell him that whilst babysitting his 2 precious sons the previous day, I'd lost one of them for 5 minutes in one of the flower beds. I hope the Drive Time Collective can find it in their hearts to forgive this sorry godmother, and if they do, I may be tempted to ask for forgiveness for my blocked toilet and handbag story. But that is for another time, says Auntie Alice, who clearly likes blocking things in general, and also just casually throws away the story about how she lost one of the twins in a flower bed. How is such a
Do you
thing?
think Auntie Alice was a bit squiffy when she wrote that? I mean, it just goes from tale to tale, unbelievable tale to unbelievable tale.
But how can you lose a twin
In a flower bed?
in a flower bed for 5 minutes?
I mean, how big is the flower bed? How small is the child?
Maybe it's on an estate or something. Maybe it's a tiny child about an inch big. Anyway, what do you think, Sister Rebecca?
Maybe they're triffids. I think
Yes,
this is a
that's
very
right.
odd story.
Maybe they're triffids.
A body mask, for a start. I mean, Sal, ever heard... Do you know what a body mask is? Okay.
No, I actually don't.
I know what a face mask is, obviously.
Well,
but
my
a body
guess
mask,
is that it's a face mask
Okay.
which extends to the whole
I've
body.
never
well done,
heard
well
or
done.
seen
Yeah,
a body
yeah.
mask, and also I can't imagine someone putting a body mask on when they're at somebody else's house.
Well,
When
it's
they're just having a
sister-in-law.
quick shower. I know, but it would take forever. And also the fact, I mean, it's a litany of just unacceptable things that have happened here, I think. But the fact that she threw away the fluffy towels and the nightie and didn't even unblock the drain and broke into the neighbour's house and then lost the son.
Well,
I
the
mean,
door was
really-
open. I think the door was
Okay.
open, and she.
Anyway,
Oh, that's fine then. No,
this is just
that's fine.
like the things that are coming to the top of my head as I speak. I just don't know how I can forgive you, Auntie Alice. I'm sorry, you're not forgiven.
It is a litany of crimes. It's true. Mother Spirit.
Auntie Alice, what is wrong with you? I mean, are you quite well? You know, you can't just go into other people's houses. You can't burglarise other people's houses because you
Excuse
happen
me,
to be
can you
looking...
not use that word?
Well, there's something... I mean, she robbed the house next door of... What was it she was looking for? Salt.
Unblocking stuff.
Salt, yeah. You can't do that.
Sink unblocker.
You can't nick your sister's stuff and assume it's okay. You can't block the drain. You can't ruin the towels. You can't lose a twin without having...
In the flower beds for 5 minutes.
I just don't know that... I mean, I agree with Rebecca. Maybe she'd been at the gin or something. I don't know.
Maybe that's true.
But how can you expect us to forgive you? It's not possible. If it was even 2 of those things, I might have considered it. But it was so many things, and it was all wrong. No, I'm not going to forgive you, Aunt Alice.
I like the idea of I think, usually it's about 20 years have gone past before someone confesses. This happened just a couple of days ago. I like that. We'll have some more August Bank Holiday confessions, I think. Oh, christening confessions. That'll be good. What do you say, Brother Matt?
I tell you what, I wish Auntie Alice was my godmother. She sounds like bags of fun. And frankly, if I had the chance to put on a body mask, I would not turn down that opportunity. Because I've no idea what it is, but it obviously involves a lot of fun and the blocking of people's drains.
I think
so why not
cover
indeed?
yourself with mud of some kind, and then
Yes.
when you peel the mud off,
And
you
then,
look exactly the
and
same.
then presumably break and enter into someone else's house. All sounds like great fun. Well done, Auntie Alice. But please do not use a drill in the bath. What was that about? Drill in the bath. I think what I'll do to unblock this is I'll use a drill. What?
No, she sent her youngest son to get a stick, a skewer, or a drill.
Or a drill. Yes, just go and get a drill for the bath, probably. No. But still, you're forgiven. Well done, Auntie Alice.
Okay.
Bags of fun.
August Bank Holiday, christening and shower and that kind of sink unblocker-based confessions. They'll do. Here we go. It's 18 minutes to 6. Drive Time Confessions. Thank you to this anonymous confessor or confessee, or maybe both. Father Simon and the Regroup Collective. Yesterday you asked for christening-based confessions and also commented that it was one of the quickest submitted confessions ever. That record was short-lived, as I'm sure this breaks it, since this took place this very weekend. That's how fresh it is. My wife and I are very keen Formula One fans and have gone to at least one race a year for the past 7 years. But we never expected to be going this year thanks to the arrival of our son. As you're all aware, aside from the financial restriction a child places on your lifestyle, certain activities become practically impossible because, well, they're not practical. Taking a small baby to the Grand Prix is clearly one such activity. So we'd resigned ourselves to a life of watching F1 on the television and educating our son in all things Grand Prix until he's old enough to go himself. Apart from those burdens mentioned, there's also the social gathering element. For the past 2 months, we've been attending a christening almost every 2 weeks due to friends we made in antenatal classes. This weekend was supposed to be another christening. Sarah's, to be precise. Now, I've nothing against Sarah, but her parents are very, 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 very proud of her and are convinced that she is a genius. I think we all know parents like this. Whilst most of us are at these gatherings just to catch up and swap stories, Sarah's parents are very, very competitive, and conversation can easily turn into a game of one-upmanship. At a previous christening, we were privileged to Sarah feeding herself for the first time with a spoon. Parents, suitably proud, asking if everybody saw her. We did. We also saw the spoon find its way into her eye, her ear, her hair, and just about everywhere, thus making this achievement something more of a fluke than intentional genius. That hasn't stopped them proclaiming, "Oh, Sarah's feeding herself like a grown-up," which prompted me to remark, "If you're so confident about that, why is she using a rubber spoon?" Which prompted my wife to swiftly elbow me in the ribs. You know how these things go. Anyway, we were due to go to her christening until a phone call on Thursday. My work means I have contact with a certain energy drink company who also run a Formula One team in their spare time.
I wonder which one that could be.
I can't think.
Yes, Pink Cow, something like
Williams?
that. No.
Or something?
No.
Lucasade.
Could be. The Lucasade team, that'd be good. A friend at said company, who knows we're big fans, asked if we fancied 2 tickets to this weekend's Grand Prix in Belgium. Turned out some competition winners couldn't go, and they would be happy if we went, otherwise they go to waste. Reluctantly, I refused, stating daddy duties. I mentioned what had happened to my wife, who also mentioned it to her mother when she called. The mother-in-law lives in Ireland, so this wasn't a fishing for a babysitter type call, but just something mentioned in conversation. In what was quite a surprise, she volunteered to babysit. Well, we very rarely get to see Jake, and you know, you could probably do with a break. We can get a cheap flight, we'll be there tomorrow. So while they're sorting out travel arrangements, I'm ringing my friend to see if those tickets were still going. And they were, so we were off to Spa. Yippee. So there we were, soaking in the atmosphere and the glorious Belgian beer in a bar when this is in Belgium, when Jake Humphrey, David Coulthard and Eddie Jordan arrive in a motorhome. We couldn't believe our luck. They were filming one of the bits that opened the BBC coverage, chatting to people and being very nice. My wife was chatting to a member of the production team, telling them how we ended up there and that our son is also called Jake after Jake Humphrey, named after the Formula One man. He then volunteered to introduce us. Well, obviously, they're filming everything. And then it hit us. We're meant to be attending a christening. At least we were until Jake got ill. And the doctor said, best keep him inside, away from the other children, for a few days. He's got a rash, or spots, and a temperature. And he's twitching. Anyway, that was the story that we'd used. But what parents leave their sick child and go and get drunk in a small Belgian village other than bad Belgian villagers? So a plan was hatched. If we were going to be filmed, we'd make sure it would never ever be aired. We got introduced and turned into the dullest people on the planet. Unimpressed, single-word answers with the occasional cuss word were all we spoke. Right. Jake was polite because he's a nice man, and he tried his best to engage us, but to no avail. He moved on to talk to other people who it seemed actually wanted to be there. Needless to say, we arrived home, we checked the iPlayer, and we're not on it. So, Father Simon, we don't seek forgiveness from our son for willingly using him in a lie. I'm sure it won't be the last time, and I'm sure that as parents, you've all done the same thing at some point. We don't ask forgiveness from Sarah or her parents. I'm sure we'll get the story about how when the water touched her head, it miraculously turned into wine. We don't ask forgiveness from Mr. Humphrey, as eternal regret of not being able to talk to him properly is punishment enough, but we do seek forgiveness from one of your BBC colleagues who, after introducing a couple just minutes before we'd been happy and jovial and eager to meet Mr. Humphrey, probably couldn't understand why we turned into such dullards who swore. Anyway, he probably got, "Why did you think they'd be good?" asked him a lot by his producer. So we apologise to him. This is an anonymous confession. It's a christening and a Formula One based confession. There can't be many of those, I would have thought. Let's see what Sister Rebecca thinks of this fresh christening tune.
It seems a bit overly complex to me. Couldn't they have just told the producer, sorry, we just realised that we're not supposed to be here and we really can't take part in your show?
There's an important bit you've overlooked.
What have I overlooked?
The amount of Belgian beer they consumed.
Okay.
They probably weren't thinking
They probably
clearly.
weren't thinking straight.
You know, it's sort of 8%, all that kind of...
Yeah. I mean, I suspect maybe that they may have been making an excuse for the fact that they were dull and that they were upset they weren't chosen for the video.
They're actually really dull. You're saying our listeners were dull before the beer.
I'm just saying maybe they weren't
really
chosen for the video and they were trying to explain it. They're doing it on purpose.
You're just dull.
Now, I don't know, it's a difficult one because, I mean, the producer, I mean, it happens all the time to producers. You find someone who seems really good and then you turn the camera on, you put the microphone
and
on,
they're dull.
and they're rubbish. So I think the producer was probably forgiven. So I think you're forgiven.
Hurry up a bit.
You're forgiven.
Okay.
You're fine.
All right. I'd like to apologise to you.
I don't think you sound dull or boring, actually. I think you sound quite interesting. This is, to me, is a win-win situation because you've got to do what you wanted to do. You went to the Formula One in Belgium. The grandma came over from Ireland on a little holiday. That was nice to look after a lovely grandchild, which I'm sure she was looking forward to. Just along the line, you told a little bit of a white lie. But I don't think that really matters because you got to do what you really wanted to do, which was go and watch an F1. And you got to meet all the big stars. And the fact that you were boring and dull in the interview, it really is irrelevant. So I'm going to totally forgive you.
All right, so let's see what Brother Matthew makes of
I've got to sympathise. I can't stand parents who think that their children are geniuses. We were in the park during the summer and there was some toddler with a stick banging it on the ground. They were going, "Ooh, look, Cedric's invented a new instrument." No, he hasn't. He's banging a stick on the ground. Get a grip. I'm definitely going to forgive here because I'd have done the same. Anything to get out of those kind of events where they think they're children's Mozart. No, he's not. You just got a stick.
OK, so the people's verdict, please. Do you forgive tonight's tale from the Formula One, from the Grand Prix in Belgium? We'll take Formula One confessions. They've got a few of those.
Yeah.
They've got a few of those. More christening, and and if anything's happened like this weekend or today, sort of instant
Just now.
stuff. That's what we'd like to have. 16 minutes to 6. Well, 8, so let's move on with tonight's Drive Time Confession, which comes from Jane. Thank you very much indeed, dear Father Simon, and the rest of the unholy gathered, particularly Mother Superior, who must be the smuttiest nun ever to walk on the earth. Got that right.
It's my winkle, you know.
As my kids start the countdown to the return to school, my conscience is pricked. Only slightly, you understand. It's not a terrible sin, this one, but enough for me to write to you. Our house is awash with uniform. Games kit, some shabby, some brand new, but mostly shabby. There are 4 of them, and all 4 go back this week with varying degrees of enthusiasm, from bored and not interested to couldn't care less. I'm sure you're impressed. We have letters from school with summer reading book lists, all ignored, letters with new staff, all ignored, and letters with the thoughts of our pompous fool of a headmaster. Anyway, there's one more letter which has come, and it's prompted this confession. You see, many years ago when I was at secondary school, I had a massive falling out with my so-called best friend, Lily. She'd been my friend since first year, and we always did everything together. Homework, cycling home, sitting on the coach. Which I imagine they mean the school bus as opposed to sitting on the hockey coach. They might have done that as well. We were always a pair. Jane and Lil were even invited to parties together. You get the picture. All was fine until Mike came on the scene. Mike went to the neighbouring school, and we both noticed him at the same time at a hockey match. Lil and I were playing on one pitch, while this gorgeous Simon Le Bon lookalike, Mike, was sweeping all before him on the other pitch. He had a way with his hockey stick, a style and command which instantly won our attention. When our match finished, we hung around to watch and ogle. When he scored a goal from a short corner, we cheered, even though he scored against our first team. When he drifted past, we both smiled at him, but get this, he smiled at me, not Lil. She claimed it was her he had smiled at, but we both knew that this wasn't true. It is true that I dreamt of Hockey Boy a few times, and Lily claims that she did too. But when it came to the return leg of the matches, it was me who he spoke to. He was hanging around after the match, which we won 4-1 against the Grange, and I scored. And as we walked off, he said, "Nice hits, impressive." I, of course, giggled and blushed, and Lily did likewise. After we had changed, he was there again by the steps leading out from the school. Lily made some silly comment, but he ignored her, and the die was cast. We were an item, or so I thought. We had 4 dates, 2 films, 2 pizzas, and then he said he wanted a break. A break? We'd barely started. Having a break is a coward's way of saying you want to break up but haven't got the guts to say so. Hockey Boy was weak and hopeless, but at the time I was, of course, mortified. And when he started going out with Lily, I was a wreck. I cried for about a term and became generally rather miserable. I was worse even than that girl in Twilight when the vampire cast her aside, which I have to say is going it. And so to my crime. After a long, long summer holiday, we were due to return to school that Thursday, I think, and our phone rang and my mum answers it. It's clear from the way the conversation develops that it's Lily's mum. The mothers chat for a while, and then my mum calls to me. "Jane, when did you go back to school? Lily's mum can't find the letter with the dates." I didn't think. It just came out. "Next Tuesday." "Really?" says Mum. "I thought it's sooner than that." "No, staff training or something," I say. "Oh, OK. It's next Tuesday," says my mum on the phone. And nothing more is said. I, along with the rest of the school, go back Thursday. Register is taken. Lily is absent. Same on Friday, same on Monday. Then on Tuesday, Lily turns up all fresh-faced and smiling. New boots and panties, as Ian Dury once said. It takes her all of 15 minutes to work out what has happened and who is to blame. We have an awkward moment in the corridor before she starts crying and says that Hockey Boy has dumped her too and that she's sorry for everything. Secretly, I'm very pleased, as I lasted longer than she did, just the 2 evenings at the ice rink, but we hug and make up as best friends. Although actually I think it was a just punishment for a crime of passion. She missed 3 whole days of a top-notch education, and her results, which came much later, were so disappointing. I just didn't tell her I thought that at the time. We still live quite near each other and see each other quite often. She might hear this, so I need to ask for Lily's forgiveness, even if she did steal Hockey Boy. And you, collective, please forgive my youthful error. Thank you, Jane. Well, we'll wait to see what the smuttiest nun ever to walk the earth is going to make of all that. First of all, a model of rectitude. Sister Rebecca, what
Well,
do
they
you
do
think?
say that all is fair in love and war, and I think that Lily broke the rule number 1 of friendship, which is, you know, you never go out with your best friend's ex-boyfriend, really.
But who sticks with that rule, really?
Well, you know,
Do they?
I think friends should, and I think mainly they do. So I think she was absolutely right to have a little bit of revenge. So, Jane, you're forgiven.
OK, what do you think, Smutty Nun?
Well, I'm trying to put myself in her position. That, you know, if somebody got out with me and then my best mate went out with him when I'd sort of split up with him, and it was his fault.
Having a break.
Yeah, that means when people say I want a break, it means actually I want to leave you. That's what it means. So I think that yeah, it's a tricky one. I think probably it's an okay thing to have been a bit mean to Lily. I'm glad it hasn't completely shattered their friendship, but yeah, you don't do that. You just blokes, listen to me. You don't do that. You don't go out with your ex-girlfriend's best friend. It just doesn't work. It's not acceptable. It's not de rigueur. Right. But you're forgiven.
Have you got personal experience in this matter?
Of course I have.
Yes, of course.
And I'm sure.
And so do you, Rebecca, don't you?
I may do.
See? Thought this was the direction we were
I was
going.
going to say, I've never heard of this rule. This is no one's ever mentioned this, that you're not allowed to go out with someone who's gone out with your...
It's the law. It's European law, I think.
Really?
Yes.
Is it? Oh, right.
It's against your human rights. What do you say, Matt?
Well, I took against Oliver with his hockey stick. I took against him... Mike, there you go, whatever. I took against him with his posh Mike name from the start.
Excuse me, hang on.
I've had enough.
Name?
Yes,
How does Mike become a posh name?
Yes, it is a posh name.
You changed it to
turning this
Oliver,
into a
that's
class
why.
war. And for that reason, I am going to forgive, because frankly Mike and his hockey stick can go take a jump, although ignorance on this apparent rule about don't go out with the best friend. Nonsense. Made up right now, that's what I'm saying.
He deserved everything that came to him.
Yes, he did. Quite right.
The people's verdict, please. 88291. Do you forgive Jane? We'll do some best friend's girlfriend confessions. There might be some of those. Hockey confessions. There'll probably be quite a few of those.
Dear.
Simon Mayo at bbc.co.uk. Confess online, bbc.co.uk/Radio 2. It's all straightforward from there. Here's tonight's confession, which comes from Marcus. Thank you very much. Second Marcus on the show. Dear Father Simon and the Holy Order, I am wanting forgiveness not for myself, but for my friend, who shall from this point on be referred to as Tom. 12 years ago, Tom and I were at high school together, and as is customary in most high schools, you have to spend 2 weeks doing work experience at a local employer's. Anyway, I had secured my work experience at a local graphic design studio, and Tom had the honour of working at the local fast food establishment, the one which had pictures of a portly man wearing a white suit. Tom's job also came with a delightful polyester uniform. This is quite important. On my it's probably shiny and sparky and that kind of thing. On my foot with a number of badges, stars, shows how good you are. On my first day, I discovered that the graphics company I was going to be working for had recently been taken over, and that they hadn't been told I'd be working for them for the next 2 weeks. As any 15-year-old would say, I saw this as a positive, as it meant that I could take the next 2 weeks off. Well, as long as neither my school or my mother found out. So each morning at 8 o'clock, I left the house, walked around the corner to the bus stop, but instead of waiting for the bus, I strolled across the road and into the park. This was a strategic move, because it gave me the perfect view of my house, and I could see when my mother set off to work, so I knew when the coast was clear for me to make my way back home. I did this every day for the rest of the 2 weeks, but it was on the third day that I undertook my misdeed. Each morning I would go and take refuge in the park, and each morning I would see Tom walking through the park to catch the bus. Tom is a creature of habit. Each morning he would get to the park entrance, sit on the second bench, and enjoy a morning cigarette. Tom has since quit smoking, so you can't hold that against him. On this day, On this day, Tom was sat on his bench as usual, and just as his cigarette was about to go out, he threw it on the floor. Unfortunately, the lit cigarette did not land on the hard concrete, but on an old copy of the local newspaper. As you can imagine, the paper set on fire, and Tom stamped on it frantically, and in doing so, set light to his high-quality fast food restaurant trousers, which, as I said, were quite important. All I could do was to watch as Tom danced around like a lunatic trying to extinguish the flames. They eventually went out, and Tom seemed to be all right, apart from the fact that the trousers, which now resembled a skimpy pair of cut-off shorts like George Michael and Andrew Ridgeley used to wear in their Wham days. I didn't see Tom again until we returned back to school. The first day back, everyone in my year group was summoned to the hall for an assembly, a surprise assembly. We all sat down in rows facing the stage when our headmaster, who was a large, red-faced, angry man, walked in. Instead of greeting us with his usual, "Good morning, everyone," he announced, Tom Smith, please make your way to the stage." Tom casually walked to the front and up onto the stage, at which point 2 local firemen walked in. Everyone in the room looked at each other somewhat confused. Our head teacher then went on to tell how this particular young boy in front of us all had single-handedly and bravely put out a fire in the local park, which was started by a bunch of hooligans who had been smoking, and that he would be rewarded by the local fire and rescue department with a gift card for £20. He had apparently saved the historic bandstand, which was threatened with flames. If it hadn't been for Tom leaping around and stamping out the flames, it would surely have been lost. This was the story he had told. Tom was at the front looking very smug with himself. We were all told that we could learn a lot from this young man, as he had shown what a true man he is. I have never told Tom that I knew the truth behind his heroic battle, as I could never tell anyone that I didn't actually go to my work experience. So I'm not asking for forgiveness for the fact that I didn't attend my work experience and that I lied to my mother and school, or for not helping Tom whilst he was on fire. I am asking for forgiveness for Tom. Now, Tom is getting married in a few months' time, and I'm going to be his best man. I'm also aware that Tom downloads your Confessions podcast. I believe they're available via the Radio 2 website and other internet stores, so he will definitely hear this. I'm giving Tom the chance to come clean about this before I make it one of the main parts of my best man speech. If you think this sounds like blackmail,
it is.
You could be right. So I'm asking the confessional to forgive Tom for starting the fire, for lying to his parents, the school, and the local fire department, and for being a little smug so-and-so while at school for no reason whatsoever. But he did look great in his burnt polyester trousers. Something we could all learn there. Well, it's an interesting tale. Be very careful, of course, if you're wearing one of those suits. What do you say, Sister Rebecca?
I think there's nothing to forgive Tom for, actually, because, nobody was harmed, and he just made the best of a bad lot. He made a fantastic story, a heroic story for himself, out of... Lying, but
money.
Nobody was harmed in that lie.
Who do you think paid for that £20? Who funds the firefighters? I think we do.
Oh, yes, you'll take it to a different level now.
I'm speaking about the taxpayers' lives.
Yes, well, I think it wasn't that much money, and I really think it was fine. What I want to know is what happened to the polyester trousers. Did he turn up at work with the little shorts on?
Well, I imagine so. He looked like George Michael in 1982.
Anyway, so Tom is forgiven.
There's a thought.
Yeah, I would always caution. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I make a squeaking sound?
Yes.
I'm so sorry. I'd like to apologise to the studio manager over there. You should never wear polyester trousers. My mum used to wear polyester. Just your mum used to wear polyester trousers. You probably don't even know. They're like nylon things.
You used to have nylon sheets.
Bry nylon. Do you remember Bry nylon?
And Alan Freeman with Brentford nylons doing the ads on the television.
Do you remember that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic.
It's not a great fabric. It's not a great look at any. So I'm quite pleased that they went up in flames. In all honesty, I can't understand why his little legs weren't hurt, but I'm glad that the nylon disappeared. So I think I am going to forgive you because you couldn't really give yourself away. Tom really shouldn't have been smoking. It's a terrible habit. I don't think people should.
No.
So that's a bit of a lesson for us all there, I think, Simon. So you are forgiven.
I'm not saying anything.
No.
In case your son's listening. Brother Matthew.
I remember in my first job, I had to wear brown pants, and
Do you mean pants?
Is it like trousers? Yeah.
Oh, say trousers. Don't
Okay,
say
no,
pants.
they were pants.
Well, is this America?
Yes, it is. And they were brown, and I'd have done anything not to have to wear those brown. And if anyone had offered me the opportunity to burn those trousers, that's what I'd have done.
What job was this?
It was in a hot dog stand.
It wasn't Newsbeat then. I thought maybe there was a Newsbeat uniform.
No, yes, the Newsbeat brown trousers.
Rob McKenzie still wears
policy.
them.
Yeah, definitely. So I am going to forgive because if I'd had the chance, I'd have done the same. And and also he didn't do anything wrong, did he? He just basically didn't stand up and shout out, "You are taking that £20 by deception, sir. Show us your trousers." So, yes, forgive.
That's
There you
another
go.
story, I think, Matt, actually.
That's another story altogether. OK, so we'll have the People's Verdict, please, on 88-291. Do you forgive Marcus or not? And we'll have brown trouser confessions.
Yes, please.
Do you think that will work?
Yes.
Burning trouser confessions.
Ooh, yes.
Work experience confessions. Smoking confessions, of which I
dear.
suspect there are quite a few. Confessions at bbc.co.uk or go via the website. Thank you very much. Well, here endeth another Confessions podcast. Who would you forgive? We'll have more of those next week. Join us if you can. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening to this BBC Radio 2 free download. Now, why not try more?
Jazz for me, I guess, is improvisation.
My pick of the best in rhythm and blues.
Music from Richard Thompson, Chris Wood and Pentangle, amongst many, many others.
All at the BBC Radio 2 website.